Tango 1 at the top, we're at Pop-Up Vehicle. 10-4, Tango 1, you have control. Tango 1 copy. Stand by. Stand by.
Integrity, passion, resilience. That's what this place was built on. That's what our community is founded on. Don't act like the example, just be the example. This is the home of the greatest fitness community in the world. We're trying to create strong, able bodies, resilient to injury with a gas tank to get shit done. If there's one thing from this podcast, it's about taking immediate action, find the problem, fix the problem. This is your opportunity. It's either a hell yes or a fuck no. It's that simple. You're ruining the Tango 1 podcast. Now is the time to take action. Now's the time to do more and be more.
The most riveting conversation is because they always have to put on their front,
and they're always worried about what they have. That's a challenge on here. It's like, you like want people to just speak, and honestly, don't you think like if they just did, I'd be way more likely to vote for you.
That's the last episode I ever did was like a counselor. It was when they were doing like the midterm counselor because Eric left when he got voted out, and then it was the counselors. And I did like a 10-minute segment with every single person in the election. And the whole thing was, I don't care about your platform. I don't want to hear it. I will edit it out. This is, who are you as a person? Like, let the people know who you are. I really enjoyed it. And then I was like, oh, here's who I would vote. Like, they weren't even my wards, right? And I was like, here's who I like based off of what they told me. And some of them were so casual with it, and others like literally had notes and they were shaking because it's a new world for some of them, right? And when they're getting into local politics. But yeah, I find that one was kind of fun.
I think if anybody's getting into local politics, they should make a point of like actually just going and like doing stuff like this, and whether it's formal or not. But the microphone adds that level of the lights, the mics, this stranger in the room. Yeah, we heard you clap. We're good. The stranger in the room who's standing behind the camera. We won't even get into what he does in his pastime, but right, it adds that dynamic. So
we look at Lyndon. You just had Lyndon Crane on.
Yeah.
He's killing it, and he's very public.
Yeah, because he puts himself out there. He puts himself in that space
and
to learn.
He's such an impressive young man. He's so impressive with everything that he does. But what a great example! He puts himself out there. He's at every event that there is, and he does coffee with Craig. He's
we're at
involved.
like an age where people are saying like and we do see it because people come in here. You do it same thing. People hiring come in here looking for jobs. And you're like, man, you gotta actually start talking to people, right?
Yeah.
And that's what he does.
Yeah.
So anyway, this isn't about him or anybody else. Let's introduce the guest. I've been talking for 5 minutes here, but I hope that's how this whole conversation goes. Welcome to Tango 1 Podcast, everybody. I'm your host, as usual, Tony Smith, and we are looking to help you guys to take action on your weaknesses or lean into your strengths through introducing you to different people in my network and sharing their experiences and their success stories and failures all at once. So today we got Andy Sullivan on here, and you are the Vice President of Asset Management. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
Big text. You didn't write it down, Irv, on the blackboard today. So at the YMCA, and that's Ontario-based, right?
Yeah, Southwestern Ontario.
Southwestern Ontario. And he's also a former host of podcasts, one of the first local podcasts that I ever heard of. What was it called? Sorry.
Straight Out of Windsor.
Straight Out of Windsor. I was going to say straight. The Straight Outta gets me every time. I have no idea why. But yeah, Straight Out of Windsor podcast, which was one of the first local podcasts I ever remember coming across. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But for me to come across it. So welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, thanks. I'm excited to do it. It's been a while, and it's been a long time since I've been on this side of the microphone for sure.
Well, that's why we don't sit at a table anymore. We sit nice and cozy.
Yes.
Nice and cozy. So, man, first of all, what the hell is asset management, I guess, would be like a cool thing to start. So let's talk about the why a little bit, because, even though I came in and did a thing with you guys recently, and I would like to talk about that leadership camp, because I think what you do there is amazing. But the why in general, Southwestern Ontario, Canada-wide, like, what is the YMCA? Because it's a lot bigger than people think. Everybody just thinks it's like a little kind of sweaty gym, right?
And some of them are very little sweaty gyms. Yeah, it's a mix of everything. The YMCA movement is worldwide, 150 years old. It's a nonprofit and charity. The mission for our YMCA is, building healthier communities in mind, body, and spirit. And so it looks different in every single community, which is really, really cool, because you're able to address the needs of that specific community. So our YMCA is a collection of different Ys where it's an association. So it's the YMCA of Southwestern Ontario. It used to just be the YMCAs of London, YMCA of Sarnia. YMCA of Windsor was its own legal entity and had its own board, had its own directors and management team. Through financial struggles in Windsor locally, they were in the process of filing for bankruptcy and they were going to shut everything down. This is about a decade ago now. And when they notified YMCA Canada, which is more of just like a governing body, they manage a little bit of like the brand and just kind of pull some resources together. The YMCA of London at the time unified, and they took in Windsor, got rid of the board and the management team, which worked out well for me because it got me in there. And we've expanded and done similar work with amalgamating other Ys, so that now we cover geography of Godrich and Woodstock all the way down here to Windsor. So from the health and fitness and recreation to the largest provider of day camps in all of Canada, or daycare, sorry, that is. We do day camps, overnight camps, and newcomer services is really big for us in Windsor. We have one of the best programs in North America for that. It's broad. We do a lot, and that's where sometimes the confusion comes in because we do so much, and it is different in each community, that the brand sometimes can be watered down a little bit because of that too.
Right. So when you say like it's different for every neighborhood or every city that they're in, is that based off the leader of or the vision of the YMCA or the leader of that place, or is that based off you're looking at the community and then building it off of that?
Yeah, ideally it should be based off of the needs of the community. So when I was hired on, we knew the Victoria Avenue YMCA, the fitness center, was really struggling. The year before, they opened the aquatic center 2 blocks down from us, and it just destroyed everything that was there on the fitness side. So we were opening this great brand new shiny facility, and I was hired at the planning stages, and literally they were like, okay, here's your budget. Go around otherwise on your own time and figure, not your own time, but set your own schedule, go and build the Y that you think your community needs. That was it. Those are the instructions I was given first morning of the job. And so that was the goal, and that's what we tried to do.
Wow. And that YMCA this is weird because being a cop for 20 years, that YMCA is, I know the block, obviously. I know every house on the block. I could probably draw them out. 20 years, I never did one call inside the YMCA.
Really? Interesting.
And I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
And nor do I remember really any, I'm sure the police have been in there, they've been in everywhere, but I don't ever remember hearing of a call. That's pretty impressive. Without knocking the city too much, because it is not in the best neighborhood.
Sure isn't.
And especially 10 years ago.
Yep.
Right, like that block is run down, was full of drug addicts. And I think that says a lot for the community too.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that building in particular holds a special place in their hearts, and some people really cherish and protect it. I'll say one of my favorite interactions with the police at that site was we were doing day camp, and we had a little guy on the spectrum, and he was having a hard time, but every time the police cars went out, he wanted to go outside, and he would run, and we're like, oh, we got a runner. But he just wanted to see the police cars. And one day an officer stopped and he started talking to him, and he came inside and he spent 20 minutes with them, and he started shooting hoops with them in uniform, and seeing the smile on his face. It was incredible. And it wasn't anything we planned. It wasn't anything, he planned as an officer. It was a great interaction. It's when everything goes well. And it made that kid's day. So yeah, there's some special connections that can happen for sure.
That's awesome. And big plug to the police, because I'm everybody knows I support that, but this is stuff you don't see, you don't hear, unless you're and it happens every day, multiple times a day.
Yeah.
Where somebody does something like that and helps somebody in some way, whether it's, even days like yesterday, I'm sure at some point, because we have pushed multiple cars off the road, just because they broke down, or I'm sure cops got out and helped move clear driveways for people. Those little things that kind of go missed when you're not paying attention out there in the communities every day, what you did, right?
Yeah.
You're in the heart of a lot of police activity. So you got to see, you know, the good and the bad, I'm sure. But there's a lot of bad that happens, but there's way more good. So
I made sure I sent Chief Frederick just a quick note just to say, hey, this is what happened. And I know you usually get people complaining when they send you a message. I just want to say, you know, officer, I don't remember his name now, but Officer so-and-so, and how much we appreciate it and how much he made a difference on this, you know, child's life today.
That's
right?
amazing.
Like, yeah, I think you have to show that side of things as well.
That's awesome. So when the big shift happened, the YMCA here, basically board gets shut down. It's going to London. What was that? That must have been tough if you were so involved in the you know, to be like shutting me down and telling me like, hey, got to go work out of my other building and this one will be, you know, that must have been tough on you.
The permanent closure of the Central Park Athletics location.
Yeah.
Worst day of my career.
Yeah.
Worst day of my career. It sucked. Yeah, it was awful.
Did you see the writing on the wall, or was it one of those like, hey, Andy, I'm coming by for coffee today. Oh, by the way, you're closed.
No, I was part of the process. Okay. I knew that we were going down that road. So we made the decision in the summer of 2020 when gyms were allowed to reopen at that point to hold off on Windsor and let's see what the response was at our other locations. And as you know, especially we'd be considered a big box, you know, it was 20-30% of people in that summer that were returning from the previous membership base at our other sites. And we just, at this location, it was the only site that we had a lease. And so the costs were so much higher. All of our other locations in our association are either buildings that we owned outright or were municipal partnerships. So we just couldn't afford to take that much of a loss where it would have taken away from our newcomer services. It would have taken away from our overnight camps and our after school program and everything else that we do, that we made the decision that we had to do it. And in hindsight, clearly it was the right decision. Seeing the recovery of our other locations, we're still working on that recovery at our other locations, that we would have decimated our funds. So it was awful. And, you know, we got on, it was a 1 day crazy day where, you know, we gave notice to our landlords. 20 minutes later, we let the management team know. 45 minutes later, we had a Zoom call with 100 staff who thought they were getting called back to work. And it was me terminating them. And I broke down, like, on the screen. And I'm not an emotional guy, I'm not a crier, but I felt these were the people that bought into my vision. These are the people that, you know, trusted me, and they were part of that, and they were doing a great job in the year. We were only open for 3 years, but in those 3 years, it was top 3 in all of Canada on member surveys and staff satisfaction surveys. We were crushing it. But the numbers weren't going to work out, and we had to do it. So, and then the afternoon, it was telling our stakeholders, and then all the media obligations, everything like that. It was terrible.
And like a true leader, like, the biggest role I think I have here with my team and all of my members, to be honest with you, is like protect them.
Yes.
So that,
yes.
I mean, you know,
I felt like I failed them.
I can totally I mean, I didn't have to go that far. Thank God. Yeah. It was like during COVID when it was like, oh my God, am I going to have to? I told these people, like, I've got them no matter what. And like, here we are. Yeah. Right. And some things are out of COVID, out of our control, this out of your control. At the end of the day, you know, you have a lot to say, but you're not the one making that ultimate decision. Whether you agreed with it or not is different. But yeah, absolutely. That's got to be tough.
The worst.
That's got to be tough. So how do you take that then? And because you are, I mean, from what I don't know you very well, but from what we have, all of our interactions, and then watching you, I learned a lot from watching you interact with some of the people when I was at your camp that day. And you're a super positive guy. Yeah. How long does it take you, like, that's a kick in the balls, to like be like, hey, I got my voice back and I'm ready to start getting after it? And how do you switch your mindset back?
You know, sometimes I'm too positive to a fault, to be honest. It's probably one of my biggest strengths, but, you know, sometimes I have to be careful with that as well. So it was right away. It really was. Like, that day sucked. But at the same time, the next morning, I was grateful that the Y kept me. And I still got to, you know, be part of this organization that I truly do believe in and I do love. And I knew they were keeping me not really for my work in Chatham that I was also supporting, but because hopefully something else was going to come about this down the road. And I knew that. And, you know, eventually it was some make work stuff. And then I landed in the role that I had, and things have continued to develop from there. So, yeah, I mean, I'm always grateful now for being in that position to be able to continue to kind of prove my worth and also continue to develop with the Y. And I'm not gonna lie, I want a Y back in Windsor bad. Like I there's nobody else that's going to be pushing for that. It has to make sense now at the same time, but I would love to be able to bring the Y back into this community on the recreation and fitness side that we currently don't do. But so I'm not saying never as well. So hopefully something will come out at the,
Try
at
not
the
to
end
say
of the day.
always and never.
Yeah, exactly.
Always and never put you in dead ends.
You
So
got it.
let's talk about that, because
Yep.
I have no idea what project or asset management, what does this even mean? And actually, before we go there, I want to ask you one question, because you said something that intrigued me. I own one building, soon to own two. I do own the second, I just don't have a fucking gym in it yet. That's a whole other story. But 2 buildings, at least 2 buildings.
Yeah.
And I'm constantly back and forth with the money wise, they probably do excuse me, very close.
Yeah.
But I'm always up in arms, like, people are like, oh, it's own, it's great. And I'm like, well, it wasn't great when my furnace,
Yeah.
like $30,000 furnace, and that's nothing compared to what a YMCA furnace would cost. It's great to the roof, it's great to this. Like, I don't own this building, and man, when the guy had to do the roof, I think it was $60,000. Like,
Yep.
So I'm kind of torn with what is better, maybe in the way long run of property appreciation. But excuse me, without thinking of that, what would you say? Own or lease? Like, what was the issue? Why is one doing so well with owner and one doing so well with leasing? Or
So, I mean,
poorly with leasing.
What you're describing is exactly what I do. So it's some scenarios it makes more sense here, and some scenarios it makes more sense here. So there's so many other variables, so it's not going to be black and white.
Right.
So I'm not going to.
General.
We can chat another time, and we can break down your
break down my
opportunities with it,
situation.
because
Okay, yeah.
that's where it's going to be. So my wife makes fun of me because sometimes people are like, "What the hell? What do you do?" It's like, it's kind of like facilities management. She's like, "It sounds like you clean the toilets." I'm like, well, sometimes I do, but really what it's about is we operate in our association at 177 different locations. Most of those are leases. So I don't do a ton with those other than the agreements and the actual contract stuff, and then things that are outside of the arrangements on there. From there, it's the owned assets or the shared assets. So the buildings, the properties, it's looking at and creating long-term plans for every one of those sites. You can't have a $40 million location and not have a reinvestment plan. That's where you get yourself in trouble. That's really what happened to the Victoria Avenue site. It wasn't being reinvested in, and you get so far behind that now, oh my gosh, it's going to take $4 million just to bring that building back up, and you have no return on investment when you do something like that at that point. But if you look at it as, okay, we're going to schedule out so we know at all of our different properties, this year we need a roof at this location, we need to redo the parking lot at this location, we need to redo, the HVAC system at that site. Then you can plan to kind of smother other properties and other projects that need to happen. You have windows, you have all these mechanical systems, the pools, which are pigs, all of those types of things. You need to have plans and long-term plans, because then shit also happens that you can't plan for, and things come up, and there's only so many dollars. So it's just making sure that the buildings are in their best condition. A newer focus for me in the last year or so has been our environmental planning and sustainability. So how can we also reduce our carbon footprint, because these giant buildings also do have a lot of utility usage and drain. So what I like about that, we can do some retrofits. I'm looking at one of our sites right now where if we do a major retrofit that's focused specifically on utilities and an LED refresh or things like that, well, we might save $50,000 a year operationally. Well, that might be the opportunity to be able to run a karate program for a year for 300 kids because of that savings. If we didn't do that, we might not have been able to do that. And that's where, you kind of have that balance, and you also get that intrinsic value of, that's why we do these things too.
Yeah,
So,
interesting with buildings, what I'm finding too, and people like, with the huge spike in our utilities and just, everything, like a loaf of bread is. Somebody was saying, I'm not a chicken wing guy, but chicken wings have gone up 150%. Like, it's things like that. It's like, so with your building, my house, so on a day like yesterday, when it got up to like 50 degrees, abnormally, you can kill the furnace, you can open up the windows. Even at night, in the summertime, you can kill the air conditioner, open the windows, let some... Well, at the building, you can't do that. You can program it to lower the furnace or lower the AC, but like I can't leave the windows open and the
No.
doors open. Like, not advisable. Probably
Yeah.
not on Victoria, and definitely not in
Different
my,
reasons for
Definitely not in my
Victoria, yeah.
Windsor location on Howard. But like, you know, like I can't even leave the door unlocked with members in it. But anyways, like that stuff adds up throughout the night. And we did a retrofit with the LEDs in Kingsville, and it was, you know, it was an investment. We got some grant stuff, but like
Sure.
it's also an investment on our behalf. But man, the difference was actually like, you're like, holy, like this is noticeable, like immediately. And,
Yeah.
and long
Quick return
term,
on
and
investment
then-
on some of those, yeah.
And yeah, I like how you put it, because you guys are not for profit. Like, so sure, I save some money, I'm able to make more profit, right? Pay my employees better, invest in equipment, whatever it is. But at the end of the day, maybe more comes home in my pocket. But when
Yeah.
you make that, it really doesn't make a difference to you I would
Personally,
assume.
yeah, there's
Like,
no
you're not
bonuses
getting
or
cut
there's
out of
nothing like that. No.
You know, but it is like you can now walk in and be like, yeah, you know, look at this, you look at these kids doing martial arts, and know that, you know, that kid who might be just running around like on the street right now,
Absolutely.
right? Like, is here doing
Yeah.
something that maybe will catch him fire in some kind of, you know, down the road. Like,
Yeah.
you could be inspiring a kid to, you know, one day he's in the UFC, that kid, or
Right.
or you know, wherever it goes. That must be pretty satisfying on some days.
It totally is. And a lot of people, they get the wrong impression. They hear not-for-profit and they're like, oh, okay, so you guys can lose money. Well, no, we can't. We can't lose money, because then there's no money to pay the bills, and we
Right.
will cease to exist. If we have what we would call a contribution, so excess funds over our expenses, we reinvest that money into, whether it's people, whether it's programming, or whether it's our actual facilities, right? So that's what it looks like as a nonprofit. It's just that money gets repurposed in a great way.
Yeah, that makes sense. You got to have a pretty, like I said about you and your positivity, you said to a fault sometimes. You have to have a pretty good ability to zoom out, though, I would imagine. If you're doing, like, for no offense, some pretty geeky work when it comes down to like figuring out how much the light bulbs are going
It
to
sure
save
is.
us,
It's
right?
hard to get
Like,
people excited
we
about
got
the work that
700
I
light
do.
bulbs
Yeah.
times, this many joules. Like, you know, I mean, like,
Yeah.
that's gotta. So I think it's important for anybody who does, you know, jobs where, you know, every job can become monotonous a little bit, or like so specific, to be able to like zoom out and see what is the bigger picture. And do you find that that's coming from leadership above you, or is that coming from, you know, self, or has that been mentored to you? Because I think that's something, a real good teaching point for anybody who has any kind of leadership position, is that, you know, you figuring out the light bulbs is really helping us with this mission. So we're winning because you are figuring out the light bulbs. I know you do way more than that. That's a really good example.
No, it is. I think it's sharing the why, like the WHY, the why behind what we're doing, is always important at those levels, because I mean, primarily I work 3 days a week from my home. People don't necessarily see me all that much anymore, which is weird. The more I move up in that organization, the less people are seeing me. It's not a great thing. So I think it's important to share some of the successes and the wins. It's easier for people to get excited when I'm like, hey, we're doing a fitness floor refresh for you, and you're getting all this new equipment, and, you know, let's plan that. Like, that's the sexy and exciting stuff, right? Replacing the boiler. Nobody gets excited about it.
Right.
But it's essential. It has to happen.
You're at
So
home like, yes.
right? Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I geek out on that stuff. I make sure that we have the master plan that's long term. Nobody else gets excited for it. People are happy it's done and dealt with, and then they can do what they do best, which is delivering programming and services.
So was your background in fitness, or was your background in...
Yeah, I have no expertise in this whatsoever.
Yeah, I was going to say, this
Yeah.
seems like a very like specific job, and I thought your background was coming from the fitness side
all
of this
fitness.
whole thing.
Yeah. I spent my whole career, almost 20 years on the fitness side of things in operations. And I'm not going to, when we closed Windsor, I'm pretty confident I was kind of thrown into this kind of makeshift of a role. It was different at the time. I was one foot was still in operations and traveling and doing I was the fitness guy for the association, and then operations in Chatham. And the other was, hey, we got all these construction projects. You have experience from some of our other projects that we've done. Can you oversee those? And then we started getting more. And then it was the project guy. And then it was just, oh, okay, this is all I'm going to do. And then it was, oh, we have more strategic plan we need. And this should probably be a VP level now. And it's, oh, okay. So yeah, I've been trying to take some courses and kind of catch myself up, but it's more about surrounding myself with experts and people that are way smarter than me. I'm never going to catch up on the technical side of things that they have and that expertise. For me, it's tying the operational and the business side with that to have the strategic vision. and then kind of pulling everything together. So it's a dance, and there's definitely some imposter syndrome sometimes that pops in with something like that. I deal with contractors and architects on a daily basis, and it's not my normal world. It is now, but I don't have decades of experience in this. So I know what I'm trying to accomplish, and I make sure there's sometimes if I'm in meetings that I'm also Googling what the hell they're talking about and referencing. But I'm not afraid, to show my ass. I'm not afraid to be like, I don't get that. Like, can you break that down for me? Can you help me understand why that and not this, or things like that? Because I don't know, and I don't want to screw that up at the same time. So
yeah, I can appreciate that, like the imposter thing too. Like when I became team leader, I was like 26. Nobody else is like doing that, right? And all these guys are older than me. They've been in the teams longer, and I'm like, there's days where you're like, this is not. I should not be doing this job. Like,
yeah.
And those are the days where you should be like, hey, like. Like I think as you get older too, you realize like, well, that's not really what leadership is. Leadership is actually making that admission, knowing that you're not the most qualified person to maybe assess this, and saying like, hey, like, where's my sniper? He's the one who's gonna know how far we are and where he should set up.
Yeah.
And then I say like, well, okay, what are the other options? And he says A, B, and C. What do you think? Well, I think A. And I'm like, well, A makes the most sense. And did you think about this? Okay, yeah, go do it.
Yeah.
Like, that's really what it is. It's just listening to other people's plans, adding a little bit, tweaking, maybe throwing your experience where like, we did this. Your idea sounds great, but we did this one time. Like, did you consider that? No, I didn't. Like,
yeah.
It's really not you making the plans and giving the orders. It's listening to the plans and saying like, great, go with it.
And pulling the resources together,
and yes,
right? And be like,
and
hey,
how can I help you do
this
that?
person is really good at that. Can you connect with him, or can you bounce this off of so-and-so? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you said the nonprofit part of this, that's always an interesting question, because I work with so many chairs and I really never understood this part of it. Like, the money, where does it actually? Because like, obviously I know running this little gym is expensive.
Yeah.
Now running a gym that has all the equipment and stuff that you'd find in a YMCA, which looks just like a Good Life, just maybe a little bit smaller, right?
Sometimes some are much bigger.
Really?
Yeah.
So
I'll bring you to some.
The building, the pools, that takes a lot of money.
Yep.
Is that coming, and employees, obviously, right? Mm-hmm. Is that coming from donations? Is that coming from governments? Like, where does the money come to run a non-profit gym?
It's a mix for sure, and some are different than others. So a lot of times if there's a new build, there might be some grants that we can tap into to help with the build on that. We definitely get donations, and there's donors and different fundraising events that we would do throughout the year to support. But it's probably best described, it's almost like a Robin Hood model. So we'll have a membership, and if Tony, you and the family come in and you could afford the full fees, awesome. Here's the fee for the membership. And we'll take a portion of that, because then Irvin might come in and might not be able to afford everything, and we'll work with him, and
he'll tell you can't.
And but what we'll do is we'll self-subsidize. We don't get funding for this, so we will take a portion of what you're paying and help cover somebody else that couldn't. And this way, nobody gets turned down. Everybody has access and availability to the programming that they want to do. We believe everybody needs to pay something, so there's skin in the game. But we make sure that people can participate regardless of their ability, including ability to pay.
That brings up a odd thought, but
yeah.
So that there's places like the Valmer, the Libro, like these places that are in, those are essentially community centers that have fitness facilities that are meant to.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation, and I hope some of the town of Amherstburg people are listening, because maybe they should be talking to the YMCAs and things like that, because my conversation with them, I was looking to, see how maybe we could get involved. There's some opportunity I saw there to help the community, also help grow my brand and help more people get in shape. And the answer was, well, places like this aren't meant to make money. It's kind of understood that we just lose money.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's our tax money. Like, I don't think that should be. I understand that they're probably not going to make a ton, and they're probably going to always be on that cusp. But to accept that we're okay with our tax money, making this huge investment into this beautiful facility, and just walking away losing money, I don't think is the best route for us. And has any towns ever even approached you guys with this? Because if you're not losing, maybe some locations lose money, but like year to year, 100 and whatever you said, and you're ending up just a little bit right of center.
Yeah.
To me, that's a huge win. Like, what are you doing that maybe these places? I'm not saying to pick on Libro in general, if you even know, or even Balmer might be making millions for all I know, right? But what are you doing that's different? How is the Y doing it differently?
So it's interesting how you say that, because it goes back to
super
our
frustrated and angry about that answer too. That's really, I'm just curious.
Well, it goes back to our first part of the conversation with the brand of the Y and how it looks different in every community. The most successful Ys are exactly what you're describing. So in the City of London, we have multiple community centers that are partnerships with the municipality, where it's also a library, it's also a skating rink, and then it's the fitness center and a pool, because it just makes sense. The town of Godrich, the YMCA, we're their parks and rec department. We run their soccer fields and cut the grass, and as well as the recreation centers and everything on that side of things. Out in Calgary, they don't have community centers. They build YMCAs as a partnership because it's a charity and it's doing the same thing that the municipalities are trying to accomplish without having to actually run it themselves. So yeah, there's the best examples of the Ys that we have, even within our association in Southwestern Ontario, are the ones that have municipal partnerships. So it's also a frustrating thing for me as the local guy to have to leave my own community and drive on the 401 to see this working so well in other communities, and it's not happening here.
Yeah, I feel like Windsor, Essex County, just in general, we have this. I used to hear this, and I don't know the new police regime, so don't quote me wrong, but I'm sure it's still very much the same in this attitude of, let's see how they do it everywhere else. Like, there's value in that, but like, why not be the place that wants to set the standard for everybody else?
Be creative. Yep.
Like, that's, I very much learned from other gyms, and I'm actually going to Vegas on Sunday.
Nice.
But to sit with a bunch of other gym owners and learn so much from these guys and girls, I will. But at the same time, like, I want to be the standard. I want to be the gold standard. And that's why I learn from other people, but I want to be the gold standard. I'm not going to base my decisions off how everybody else does it.
Yep.
I'm going to be like, oh, I like that, throw that away, keep all of that, and take a little bit of that. Like,
that was my whole mentality when I was building our local Y. Like, I think it was like 29 different Ys in Michigan and Ontario that I went to, and it was exactly what you're saying. I was like, ooh, gonna take that. I'm gonna totally rip this off. I will never do what they're doing here. Like, yeah. You learn from other people, and you can mold it and make it your own, and kind of put it within your vision.
Yeah, very interesting, and makes me really think. And then to think about a community center in an area like Amherstburg. Not everybody here has money, and I certainly don't have a ton.
Sure,
but like, we have affluent, we have middle, and of course we have people who are struggling.
Yep.
But to think of it like that, if we could, there's probably a way to make it where we, these people can't pay, these people can pay, and we can get us where we're somewhere in the middle, where we're not losing money, we're providing the services that this town wants and expects out of the investment. Yep. We have to remember, it is our investment. Yes, there's, I'm sure, private sponsoring and all these things, but that's what should be expectations and standards. And what I'm finding a little bit frustrating is, like, if you want to get involved, you have to be at this town council things and like spend hours.
There's so much fun too.
Like, it's a struggle, and I think we've put the right people in place to start making some differences. So before I go on and my rant any further, I hope that is the case. So let's shift gears, man. Leadership. Yeah. So kind of how we connected more formally. We followed each other, whatever, for a while, and you reached out to me about a leadership camp you had set up, and then when we did a call, one of the things that really impressed me was, you had noted that, you felt, yes, you had some guidance and maybe what we call it, unranked or not like organized mentorship, which I had in becoming the team leader. I had some great mentors, great people who showed me, but it was never like a real like, hey, like, let's really talk and dig into leadership. It was like, go figure it out and then ask people, learn from people, watch people.
Yep.
And you and I, set up a camp similar, but within the policing environment to do that. And then you told me like basically the very same story from the Ys, like, and I was like, man, this is perfect. I'm like, of course I'll come and talk. Where did the inspiration? Let's talk about that. Like, was it hard to put together? Was it well received? And how's it going? So let's just talk about your camp in general, what you did there, and how it's coming about.
Yeah. So in probably 18 or 19, I think it's 2018, I went to a Y Canada leadership program, and I couldn't help but think as we're going through, I was like, we have more talent that like we could do a better job of this internally within our Y. Like we have strong leadership, like our association of Southwestern Ontario. And I was talking to one of my colleagues, Katie, who you met while you were there as well. And she's like, I've always wanted us to do our own training. Like I think we could do something, we need to do more with our own leaders. And so we set up 2 meetings and with ourselves and just kind of map, well, what could it look like? Well, I like that they did these topics, but I really wish it was like this. And we pitched it to our COO, and he gave it the green light and was like, run, like, I love it. Let's go. And, you know, so really how we approached it was, I didn't want to teach them anything Y specific. I wanted to teach them this was all about leadership that they could take with them and move in their career elsewhere, and they would be better off because they did this.
Right, because I really find that's the easier part of the job. Like
of course
you said,
it
like,
is.
you have no idea what asset management was,
Yeah.
and you learn.
Yeah.
Right, like
Yeah.
you know, and then, like me, like how you get into a building or whatever, or gyms. Like I just came in and I just learned it.
Right.
But man, leadership like doesn't work like that. Like,
Yes.
And
You have to work on it. Skill sets.
You know, I'm pretty controlled here. Like, you know, the SWAT team was even pretty controlled. We had a great involvement with selecting people. You're getting like a lot of people from all over the place that you've got to lead. Like, so that's a great identification, I think, right there.
Yeah. So it went great. So we had year 1 in 2019, and it was just an internal thing, and got great feedback. And then 2020 we couldn't do it, so we did some virtual stuff that instead in lieu of. So this past year was the first time bringing it back, and it was really cool. It was 2 graduates from the initial program that are now running it. So we gave them the reins, and I really didn't do anything at all. Like I can't take any credit for it. But because we were hosting it at our Camp Henry site, they were having a hard time finding keynotes, and I was like, well, you know, going back to Straight Outta Windsor, I was like, well, I've got a list of people I could share that would be, you know, more local, that I think would be relevant. And I put together a little synopsis. They were both based out of Woodstock in London, so they didn't know anybody I was talking about anyways. And I know you don't believe me, but you were the first person that they wanted. Like we ranked them. Okay, who do you want me to ask? And you were the first person that they thought would be most related. And get the most out of it. So we had Tony come out. Yeah. and Tony came out and you did a great keynote and you talked about your experiences. You got them hyped up. They loved it. Only positive feedback. It was tremendous. Like our first one that I had was in 2019. I think I shared with you afterwards. It was Richard Petty. You know, former president of the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Raptors, and he came in and he did his. You got them hyped. You got them at their level, I think, which was great. And so for anybody else that's looking for anybody, here's a little plug right there for you as well. Tango One.
Plug. That was amazing. Thank you. And I really liked what you did there, like with, or what they did. I guess you should give them credit.
Yeah.
But, is that I really think it's important, and I don't know if this was hard for you to get approved. But I really think there's so much value because when I do go in with Tango One proposals, one of the things I want them to do is get the hell out of that building.
Huge.
And go somewhere alone.
Yep.
You know, where we're limiting distractions of like, oh, I got to go to my kid's baseball game and I got to do this. And I know we all have to do that. But like, really, I found that in my olden days with the teams, we used to go to Chatham for 1 week of training.
Yeah.
And because we went there, those other things weren't there. And there's so much more to like, yeah, we, you know, like you guys did, we had discussions. I'm sure like I left and I'm sure you guys did other drills and leadership things and, you know, trust falls. I'm just kidding. Yeah. But, you know, like, yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the old, that's what the old vision of these things are. But yeah, you did all these things. And then most importantly, you put your notepads away and then you just sat there like families do.
Yes.
Treat your team like your family. And like, what do you do with your family? You eat dinner.
Yeah.
You know, you sit around a
have some
campfire,
drinks.
you know, have some drinks, have some coffee, get up in the morning, have coffee again, have breakfast, you know, laugh about the night before, and then you get back after it.
Yeah.
And you come away from those things just by pulling the team out for 48 hours. I know it's a lot to ask for people to leave their families, but
yeah.
That is, I think, probably the key to the success of that camp. Was that hard to get approved, or is that something you're...
No,
that's amazing.
It's right
Good
in our
for them.
values. Yeah, they were fully supportive. We have a great leadership team, and you know exactly what you're just describing is how I approached my role coming into this, because you know all of a sudden now I'm managing the facility guys, and there were like, why is the fitness guy telling us what to do, right?
Right.
So I set up very similar, just with my
for push-ups,
right? Just for my, is he gonna make us do push-ups now? But I took my team up to our other camp in the Georgian Bay camp, Queen Elizabeth, and we did 3 days there. And we worked together all day long. Like, we were repairing things, we were fixing up things, and a lot of word work, everything like that. And then it was just social, getting to know each other on a human, personal level. And it made a big impact because they're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, the fitness guy also knows some woodworking and, can swing a hammer and everything like that. And he's a nice guy. Like, we get to know people a little bit better on a deeper level because you're not just in the office and, the 5-minute chit chat before you have to get to a meeting or whatever it was. It was more of a human interaction. I think that's where you need to meet people at.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly with it. And meeting people, like you said, like what you said, I did well there. And I think one of the things I do when I come in is one of the mistakes I used to make. And I think leaders maybe make this mistake, or especially leaders with some rank. And if you're a keynote, you kind of get this unofficial rank because you come in,
yep.
you're given this. And I used to go in like kind of dressed how I wouldn't dress. And when you dress different, like it is part of like, if you really have a vision of like, being in first class, then like go sit in first class, feel what it's like, put a nice suit on, feels like, but like when I'm going in there to speak on the guy who's this guy. I'm not going in there to pretend to be somewhere else or to aspire to be somewhere else. And I think like that was a huge thing. And it's funny how like clothing or like where you sit at the table, like when you're a leader and you go away with these guys and girls, you're able, sit in the middle of the table. Like it really does matter.
It does.
Right. Like, and then they see you differently when sometimes you have to sit at the end of the table and sometimes you have to stand up. Like it's just there's a lot of really things that go into leadership and interacting and bringing yourself to level. And I don't mean like my level's higher than yours. And sometimes yours is actually VP, like you are,
sure.
It is by rank. But I mean, just on the level of connection, like in that, those little intricacies and reading, I think a lot. Like you love reading.
Yep.
I'm reading a book by Colin Powell right now. It's not written by him, but it's written in parcel with him. It's lessons. It's real short lessons. I'll send you. I'm almost done. And I'm like, this guy's on it. And there was a lot of that kind of stuff. It's like, I'm thinking I'm going to get these, like how to make a mission, right? Like,
yeah.
But no, I'm getting like things like this, little nuances that are just like, wow, that's amazing little tip and works.
Yeah. I'm big on, and it's probably the last 5 years, focusing on authentic leadership. And it was something, I mean, I've been in management positions since I was like 15, and my receding hairline helped me a lot back then because people didn't know how young I was in my early 20s, gave me opportunities. But
I know, everyone's just over there adjusting the light. I don't know what that was like.
There's lots of extra glare.
Keep going.
No powder. But I used to think I had to play the manager role.
Right. That's exactly what I'm trying to get at.
I was 22 years old. Yeah. I was 22 years old and I was made the general manager of Good Life Fitness. And I looked and I was like, oh, all of my staff are a decade older than me. And I tried to play a different person. And then, as I got more comfortable and confident in my own abilities and had successes, I was like, oh, and I start getting into big brothers, big sisters. I'm a board member. I was like, okay, how am I supposed to behave here? And then I'm, volunteering here and I'm, moving in with the Y at this point. And I realized I could just be myself. And being myself when I'm the board president of Big Brothers and Big Sisters, it made people a lot more comfortable. Because I'm self-deprecating and I like to make jokes and I'm as casual as I can be and I don't even like to wear pants. I'm a shorts guy as much as I can. I'll add the shorts part.
Yeah, totally. Finish this.
I told you coming here, I just left the community event and I was suited up because I had to be for this media thing. And I need to make sure I had time to change to just be more comfortable because this is who I am. So I didn't go to board meetings in a suit if I could avoid it. I went in my shorts and a hoodie or whatever it was because they're there because of the person I was, or I'm there, I should say, because of the person I am and the experiences and the leadership that I have. I'm not there because of the clothes that I'm wearing. I'm not there because of the title that I have. And I take that with me every single day with work and then with all the other things that I do outside of that, same thing.
I think if people can take away from this, doesn't matter where if you hold a position of rank or whatever, a position of rank is parenting and you're a father, I'm a father.
Yep.
Like those same things apply.
Absolutely.
And it's like being who you are. what is the situation? What environment are we going to put ourselves in where we can make the best communication? This podcast, we used to sit at that freaking table, and I think it changes my demeanor, because when I never sit at tables like that and have conversations unless I'm in, like, we're talking numbers and, you know, how we're going to run this next program here.
Yeah.
You know, we need to be making notes. When we switched it to this, it was like this whole other open vibe, and I feel like I do a better job of keeping the conversation going.
Yeah.
Because I feel myself, and then that vibe translates to you. So we're talking about opening, getting your kid to open up about something. You know, maybe the kitchen table is where the best place for your family, but maybe for me and my son, it's back sitting by the wood pile, you know, throwing some things in the fire and making some s'mores. Like, figure out where that best connection can be made, and, like, think outside the box with leadership, instead of just like, what am I trying to do right now?
Yeah.
Like, how can we get there the best way, the easiest way, where we're not opponents, right? Like,
yeah.
You know, like, when you call someone in your office sometimes to give them shit, it's like you actually want to not view them as the opponent. You want to be like, hey, like, if he made a mistake, I made a mistake, because he works under me by rank. How can we we're going to work together to get to this point, even though there might be some discipline that has to come with it.
Yeah. And, you know, I've heard you talking about your staff. I know some of your staff as well. So I think you're very similar. Like, I genuinely care about my team, right? Like, so I want them to do well. I want them to feel good, even when they do mess up. Like, we're still good, right? Like, you know, but there's an issue here, we got to fix that issue. But then at the same time, I want to also know what's going on in their kids' lives, or, you know, with their parents, or whatever circumstances that they have. Like, I don't want it just to be about work. I want to care and show that I care about them as people, well-rounded people at the same time.
You know, like, so you had, in that room that we were in, you know, up in the Camp Henry, you had a lot of young leaders.
Very much so, yeah.
Everybody in there had to be 10, well, not everybody, but most people were probably 10, 15 years younger than me, if not more. And do you find, like, I have a lot of trouble. I think one of my biggest struggles in leadership roles is I know what you're talking about is maybe a mistake. I know this plan is maybe a mistake, or the approach to that conversation was maybe a mistake. But I also have come to learn that you don't know what you don't know until you do know it.
Yeah. And
the only way to figure it out is to either listen to somebody like me, you know, give that lesson, or for me to listen to somebody who's been there above me, not just me teaching people, but also in the learning capacity. But it's very, very difficult to not sound like the old man who's just harping on them. So it's like that fine line of, like, maybe I should just let this go and let them figure it out. Or maybe I need to sound like the old man, but if I sound like the old man, they're going to turn me off before it starts. Like, do you run into that situation, I would imagine, often?
Not so much now, because now I am actually the youngest one. And, like, my team has way more experience, technically, than I do. So not so much now. And even, like, our senior leadership team, I'm the youngest one at that table. But more related would be when I was both feet in operations and had younger staff that were kind of building in their careers, for sure, absolutely. And that's the time, you know, you might ask more probing questions and be like, what are you trying to do? What else have you looked at? And see if they can kind of come up with some of those things themselves. And yeah, give people the chance. And I was always, and I still am, like, a firm believer, come up with ideas and try new things. We're going to try 10 new things that even if you come up with them, and 7 of them are going to suck and they're going to fail. But because we tried 10, we have 3 new things that we can now do and apply because of that, right? But as long as you're able to do the work and get past those 7 shitty things that sucked, you're now better, and we're now better as a company organization because of it too. Yeah, and we ran into a sensitive situation in here a little while ago with a member, and that's not important. But the person who, one of my leaders who was going to be dealing with it, you know, came up with his approach, and I'm like, I don't know, like, you know, like, I'm like, you know, I'm like kind of being the old man, like, I don't think that's gonna work. And then it worked, and I was like, it worked. And she's like, it went over. And then you have to realize that, you know what, I am also a 45-year-old man, 44-year-old man who's not able to connect probably at the same level. Certainly. Different genders, you know, there's a lot more to it than just experience of leadership. Sometimes it's just like, you have to know your gaps as well. I'm just not who that person is, and I can't connect on the same level because I've never been in those shoes. Totally. So yeah, definitely things to be learned there. So baseball, man, spring training, Tigers rebuild 2.0. This is it's awful. Yeah. It's awful. 2 years ago, so much hope. But We got Scott Harris. There's a new vision. We've got some talented kids that some might be good out of there, and we've got it. Where's baseball? Baseball's back. This is the time of optimism.
I love baseball. I enjoy baseball season, but man, maybe because of being a Lions fan too, it's just so like you're just like so used to this letdown. And like my kids, this is hilarious. My kids pick their football teams randomly. I said in our household, you have no choice. You are a Tigers fan. Everything else, I will not do that to you.
Yeah.
You pick your football team, and one picked the Eagles, but he picked the Eagles like 6 years ago.
Nice.
Like since he's 3 years old. Eagles,
smart kid.
Everything. And the other kid was the Rams.
Okay.
And both based off, this is before the Rams made their runs. Like not the runs that we know, the runs like with McVay. And I'm like to my son, I'm like, listen, watch this game, like enjoy it. Like you have no idea, like if being a sports fan, think about it in your lifetime, like the Pistons, the Bad Boys, and then one more time, the Tigers in '84, which I barely remember. Like I remember seeing Gibby's home run and being my dad going crazy, but like it's like I don't remember any of the game.
No.
And the Tigers' little couple runs there where they fell short. It's like that's a long lifetime. Like,
sure is.
If you're a huge fan, like you might not see the Eagles go back to the Super Bowl again. Like you really don't know. So it's pretty crazy how sports are like that, but. And in Detroit right now, we're struggling, man.
It's a hard go.
So both my kids have watched Super Bowls, and I've been alive since 1978, and I've seen one playoff win. Come on.
Yeah, I'm a Leafs fan, Tigers fan, born in '84, so I don't even have that memory that you have. And somehow I'm a Browns fan, actually. All my teams suck.
Glutton for punishment.
Yeah, it's painful.
You pick the Jets, maybe. Like,
right?
Yeah, if you want to get Lions, Browns, Jets. I don't know which one would be worse. But.
I don't know. It's rough. It's a rough go. So loyalty.
So, you love to read. You love reading. Let's maybe if somebody was gonna pick one of the. You said you read like how many books a month?
Like 3
and
books
this is
a
like
month.
paper.
Probably?
Like we're reading.
I can only do paper. Yeah.
I've
tried
Audibles lately. Like, only when I'm
I listen to too many podcasts. I listen to podcasts during those times.
Yes.
Yeah. See, like this one, I have subscribed to Tango. But yeah, lots of reading as well.
So, what if you're gonna recommend one book for somebody to improve their leadership? What would it be?
Oh, to improve leadership specifically.
Really anything, I guess. Anything that you think would benefit people. I know you gave me a book today. Anything.
I'll share that one because that's fresh in memory. I gave you Frank O'Day's book. I don't remember the title off the top of my head, but tremendous book. He's written 2, but it's his autobiography. He's a Canadian that he was homeless, an alcoholic, living in the streets of Montreal and then Toronto, and a shop owner gave him a break and gave him a chance just to kind of not just be loitering around, basically. And he just took a break and turned it into eventually opening Second Cup Coffee, the company, and became a multimillionaire. And it's a marvelous story. It talks about compassion and teaches a lot about that. And, and it helps when right now, well, for always, but we see, poverty in our face a lot in our society right now. And not everybody is the story that you tell them. Everybody has a story. And, this was Frank's story. He was one of those people. And now he's the executive flying first class in his suit. And he turned it around because he was given a chance. And I think, as I consider myself a kid that, grew up here and I got the benefits of a lot of social services in our communities. And, because people gave people chances, I am where I am now because people gave me a chance. And so I think it's important to give back and do some of those types of things. But on the book recommendation, Frank O'Day. Yeah, I'll give that one.
Look it up. We'll include it in the show notes. The one thing you said there, though, too, and I think people need to realize, and with your story, listen to you say that, is like, man, you are where you are because you were given a chance, an opportunity, but you are where you are because you seized it.
Yeah.
You took action. I think like there's chances come by, opportunities come by, and some of them we let slip through. I think you got to be ready to. That's actually a tactical thing. Be ready. Opportunities present itself. You need to take advantage, and be ready to take advantage at all times. And maybe Frank was different. Well, he must not have been.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Even though he
took advantage of the opportunities he was given.
On the cover of the book, he's holding a cup, bumming for change.
Yep.
Right. Like so, pretty incredible, man. There's so many incredible stories like that. But like you said, like you don't have to be at the bottom. Like, you still, all of us should be looking for those opportunities and ready to pounce on them if that's really where you want to get.
Absolutely.
And so if people do want to support the YMCA, what could they do to do that?
Well, we're pretty easy to find if you're looking it up. So YMCA, we're our local Y, so YMCA Southwestern Ontario. Camp Henry, I'll give a plug on that one, I guess, if anybody wants a great overnight experience. It's a great one where it's in our own backyard at Point Peely. Good introductory overnight camp for any youth as well.
So Camp Henry, what? Because that just jogged my memory because you were telling me about it when we were walking around there. But I was not gonna lie, like we talked about when you're kind of listening but not. I was a little nervous to speak. And you're going through it, so you're not getting all the information. Camp Henry is in association with the Y now.
Yeah.
Camp Henry's at Point Peely, if anybody doesn't know.
Yeah. So we it's a partnership with Parks Canada. So they manage and own that site. So I don't do anything on that site when it comes to our properties because it's their property. But we run the overnight camps throughout the summer. So this way it gets utilized all summer long, and we get kids and families that are coming from the States, coming from all over Ontario.
Anybody can rent this, or you have to go?
So the summer camp is through us at Camp Henry. But then throughout the year, the authentics that are on the property can be rented. I brought my kids there last September.
Those are really nice, man.
It's super cool.
Man, Point Peely, like, man,
it's a gem in our backyard.
Hilarious, because I hadn't been to Camp Henry since I was a Cub Scout.
Yep.
And I remember having such great times there, actually, back when Cubs was like a real thing, right? And when we went, I was walking around there, I was like, wow, my kids would love this. And then forgot how beautiful Point Peely was. I ended up there for like 2 more hours, walking the trails. Yeah. Right? Like, amazing.
I get that feeling every time I'm there.
Yeah, for sure.
Why aren't we doing more of this or promoting more? Like, why isn't this bigger for our community? I think it is, but maybe not for everybody. That doesn't make it out there.
Man, awesome. I really appreciate you coming on here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome having you. Thank you, everybody. Our sponsors, of course, Ian and Kara Murray from Murray Insurance. Continue to thrive in the Kingsville area. They're doing a women's program that's coming up very soon. You guys should check them out and look into going there for raising money for female sports in the Kingsville and Essex County area. And thank you HQ Nutrition, who's always supplying us with some Focus and other supplements. Use code Tango15. That is it, man. So thank you so much, and cheers for coming on here. Get back to work, whatever you got to do.
Yeah, I'm on it.
Back to the day.
Now's the time to do more and be more.